Hello everybody, and welcome back to our Farming Simulator 25 how-to guide. Today we're going to be taking a look at a new crop introduced with the Highlands Fishing expansion at the end of the Year 1 Season Pass, and that would be onions. We're also going to be on the new map, Kinleg, for this video. Now, onions is an interesting root crop that has been added because it does introduce some new machinery in order to plant, harvest, and collect our onions, as well as a few new types of production buildings in order to run those onions through some other productions in order to make some additional products. Now, Giants recently released an infographic about our onions, so let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. We can see from this infographic that we're going to be planting our onions in March or April should we choose to play with the crop calendar enabled. It's going to take 6 months of duration for our onions to grow, and we're going to be able to harvest them in August or September. Onions are going to produce a max yield of around 70,000 liters per hectare, and what we don't know from this infographic is, does that factor in the yield bonus from doing our field prep, like fertilizing, lime, plowing, and weeding, or does it not? And we'll find that out in this video. We also have an average selling price of $750 per 1,000 liters, and that's going to be factored in on easy economy. If you play on normal or hard economy, then your selling prices will be lower. We're going to use just 5 liters of seed per hectare, so it's a very, very small seed, so therefore we get a lot of seed per liter, and therefore we shouldn't have too much issue in running out of seed, even with our small planter that we have to use here. We can see that we have multiple growth stages. We see those photographed here. We have rated harvest date, where the tops of the onions are kind of laid down as if they are dead. We're going to collect the onions by digging them up out of the ground and depositing them into a windrow on the ground surface, where we'll then come through with some machinery to collect them off the ground and then further process them either by selling them or running them through one of the various productions. Now let's take a look at the machinery that we're going to be using to collect and work with our onions. If we come to our vehicle shop, we can come to packs and then onion, and we're going to see most of the machinery that we could use for our onions listed here. I am going to be using the New Holland T8000 series tractor, but we don't have to use that tractor for onions. We can use any tractor we wanted as long as it has the proper horsepower for the machinery we're using. We're going to start out by using the Monosim MS Electron planter, and that's what we're going to use to plant our onions in the ground. This is a special purpose planter that's only set up for onions. I was hoping that this would also work with our red beets, parsnips, and carrots, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. We're going to use just standard FarmSim Magic Seed in our planter in order to plant our onions, so we don't need any sort of specific seed, and unlike potatoes or sugarcane, we don't need onions in order to put onions in the ground. We can use any cultivator we want, but of course we have the Echo Cultivator 300 listed here. The field we're working with has already been cultivated, so everything is ready to go. Once our onions are ready to harvest, we're going to need to use the UMR 300 FC. This is going to dig them up out of the ground and deposit them in a windrow behind the tractor, right underneath the middle of the tractor, so we're not driving over our crop. And then we're going to further process them with the UR 205, which is going to further clean the dirt off the onions and allow us to windrow them either left, right, or center. The Ropa Keller 2 RK22 is one of the 2 collecting harvesters that we're going to use to pick the windrows up off the ground and deposit them into an awaiting trailer once the harvester is full. The Ropa can be configured to either work with potatoes, and we can see the potato head here, or onions. So make sure when you do want to use the Keller 2 that you have it in the onion configuration. Now there is another harvester that we can use for our onion collection, and we're going to find that listed here under potatoes. We have the Veritron 470, and again, we're going to need to select the onion configuration, and when we do that, we drop the front potato header as well as some other potato equipment on the front of the machine. And now this is set up to simply collect, again, the onion windrows and store them so we can easily transfer them to a trailer. Now, speaking of trailer, we are using the trailer listed here, the Series 140 from Bunning, but you can use any trailer you want in order to collect your onions. Once your onions have been collected, well, then you can take them to a sell point, like our farmer's market sell point that I have placed here. If you are on Kinleg, well, then you're going to be able to take your onions to other locations, like Feed and Grain South, the train sell point, Logistics Center East, Logistics Center Railroad, or the vegetable processing plant. We've got 2 vegetable processing plants listed here because I went ahead and placed another one down. We could take our onions to the processing facility located right here, and this is going to take our onions and clean them and put them in bags and then put them on pallets. So we're going to find this piece of machinery under our build mode, under factories. We're going to scroll down a bit, and it's going to be $17,500. Of course, clean bagged onions are going to bring a little bit more money than just raw, dirty onions directly out of the ground. So we can see here that our best price is going to be $9.09 according to this screen for onions. And then if we go to our packed onions, we're looking at a better price of $12.66 just for running them through a plant. Now, other things we can do with our onions is we can make onion salt, we can make onion soup, and we can make fried onions. And in order to do that, well, we're going to have to take them to the vegetable processing plant. We're going to find the vegetable processing plant either on the map itself, or we could place one down. And that's what we've got here for $440,000. So this rotates 360 degrees on center. So if you are playing on any map other than Kinleg, then you can still process your onions into other products. Specifically, our fried onions are going to require some sort of oil, be it canola, olive, rice, or sunflower oil. And we're going to bring 100 onions in, and we're going to get 28 units of fried onions out. Onion salt is going to require 100 units in and 25 units of onion salt out. And onion soup, again, 100 onions in for 50 onion soup units out. Now, it all starts with putting our onions in the ground. So let's just go ahead and get that process started. But before that, let's talk about our field. Now, I've gone ahead and prepped this field. It should be at 100% fertilization. It should be fully limed and ready to go. We have also cultivated this field. So we should be pretty close to our 100% bonus already. The Monosim MS Electron only holds 27 liters worth of seed, but again, that shouldn't be too big of an issue because according to the infographic, we're only going to need 5 liters worth of seed in order to seed this particular crop. I'm going to go ahead and make use of AI in order to effectively and efficiently plant our crop. I'll bring you back once this process is over. So we used just over 7 liters worth of seed. We've got 19.3 liters of seed. We started out with 27. So I'll attribute a little bit of that to overlap as the AI was working the field. But overall, as you can see, we're using very little seed per hectare. I'm going to go ahead and roll the field and weed the field in order to get that taken care of. And then we'll be back and take a look and see what our first growth state looks like. As I mentioned, we've rolled the field. I've weeded the field. We now have 100% bonus. We are 100% fertilized and we are growing. So this is what our first state of onions looks like. You can see we have little areas where we don't have any onions at all. That is a result of how the planter puts the onions in the ground. let's go ahead and move forward yet another month and see what stage 2 looks like. Well, no big surprises here. We're in our second growth stage. We made it to May, and everything looks just a little bit bigger than it did before in growth stage 1. Again, no big surprises here. We moved to June, growth stage 3. We've got one more growth state, and then we're going to have ready to harvest come August. Our final growth state, again, before the plant dies off and we're ready to harvest. You see the top part of the plant is relatively long and, spindly. You can definitely see very well-defined areas here where our planter wheels were not putting the crop down. But again, that is normal behavior for that planter. It's harvest day. We've made it to August. Our crop, as you can see, is died off. We're ready to get our onions out of the ground. Now, when I woke up this morning, I woke up to a hailstorm, and I had not previously turned off weather destruction. So we do have a few little spots in the field here that have been damaged as a result of that hailstorm. So we'll need to factor that in when we do get our final results. So now that we're in a ready to harvest state, I've already hooked up to our harvesting equipment. Again, we're going to use the Highlands equipment in order to dig our onions up out of the ground. This is going to put them in a little windrow between the tires. And then we're going to further clean our onions with this piece of machinery. And we're going to have the ability with this belt to either windrow to the left, to the right, or down the center. We pull up our F1 menu. You can see we can hit Control Y to toggle the work mode. And the easiest way to see that is if we turn it on. So we see the belt is going to the right. Toggle work mode. The belt extends, and now it's depositing to the middle. Control Y again, and the belt is now working towards the left. You may ask yourself, well, why would I want to do that? Well, you could just make it so you have less up and down runs with your second harvester in order to collect your windrows by, let's say, windrowing left one direction, turning around, windrowing left that direction again, which means you've now moved 2 passes into one larger windrow. So then you can collect them with this harvester and hopefully have half the passes, meaning half the working time, in order to collect the same amount of crop. Or you may be up against a hedgerow or a fence or some other obstacle that you're going to want to shift your product away from, which will make it ultimately easier to harvest. Now, for the harvesting operation, I am going to hire a helper with this guy, and then I'm going to manually come around with the Veritron and collect the onions off the ground. We could go and use this across the entirety of the field first, but I find that when I use this harvester with AI, they really do make kind of a mess of things when we're all said and done at the edges of the field. You see here, he's windrowing to the left. And that may have just been how we had left it, which is fine. We'll make do. So we can see how this is going to work. We have one windrow here, and then over here where we've made 2 passes, we now have 2 windrows worth of onions. So we can make 1 pass, and now we've basically saved ourselves half the work. To use this machine, we're going to hit X to unfold. We're going to lower, and we're going to turn it on. Now, I kind of like the use of this machine because it's really easy to use from in cab. All we got to do is basically center our implement right down the middle of the windrow, and it is going to be collecting our windrow and depositing it again in our hopper, where we'll then unload our hopper into a trailer. Now, as a general tip with this harvester and many others that unload off of the belt, we can right click and we go up and down to change the angle, or left and right. I do have to say, I feel that onions are a less than tedious crop than some of the other root crops are. There is an extra step, indeed, in needing to windrow them and then collect them. But overall, they're a lot less tedious than, let's say, potatoes or other crops like sugarcane. I do really wish that the machine here that digs the onions up out of the ground, I do wish it still worked with parsnips, carrots, and red beets. Because I feel like the overall process isn't all that different between those various crops, and it would make harvesting those a bit less tedious, because we do have a harvester here that will work with those crops in theory once they're windrowed on the ground, and also allows us to store them so we don't have to use a harvester like a forage harvester and offload while we're harvesting. Now that our harvest is complete, how much did we get? Now, the field info shows this field as 0.99 hectares, about as close as we're going to get to a full 1.0. In the end, we filled up 2 bunning trailers. Each of these trailers is going to hold 31,900 liters worth of product. And then we ended up with a few left over still here in the harvester, 4,871. For a total of 68,671 liters worth of onions off of our just under 1 hectare field. Let's come back to our infographic of max yield per hectare, $70,000 or 70,000 liters. We can see that that is indeed factoring in the yield bonus of 100%. So due to the storm damage, we lost a little bit of crop there. Due to being just under 1 full hectare, we lost a little bit of crop there as well. Now, as we mentioned, we can sell our onions at various sell points, including this farmer's kiosk. And if we take a look at our selling prices as of today, not maybe the best time to sell, but we'll just look here. $9.09 is listed as the best price in January. It's different than the price from the infographic, which was again $750 per hectare as the average selling price. Right here we have the max price of $9.09. So if we take 909 and multiply that by 68.671, because of course this pricing is per 1,000 liters, we're going to get. Now, if we move on to our production, if we simply took our dirty onions and ran them through our onion cleaner to make packaged, bagged, cleaned, palletized onions, well, we're going to lose 20% of our product. So 100 onions go in, only 80 onions come out. What does that equate out to as far as money? Well, if we take a look at our prices screen and we take a look at packed onions, you'll see we have a max selling of $12.66, at least here on Kinleg. If we factor in the 20% loss of our yield of 68,671 liters, we're only going to get 54,936 liters of packed onions out. If we take that, divided by 1,000, and then multiply it by the price of $12.66, we're looking at $69,548. A nice little up from the $62,471 of just selling onions directly. But there was a lot more money in onions than just cleaning and packaging them. If we come over here to our vegetable processor, of course we have to buy this facility for a good chunk of change, but once we have bought the facility, we're ready to go. We can make fried onions, but we will also have to have access to oil, either canola, olive, rice, or sunflower oil. We can buy that at the warehouse, or we can make it at an oil mill. 100 onions go in, only 28 onions come out, so we lose quite a bit of our onions. If we factor that in, we're still making a ton of money off of our fried onions. We're going to get 19,227 liters worth of onions, fried onions, out of this facility, assuming the yield of 68,671 that we got today. If we take that by the price, which is pretty steep, you're going to see that we are going to be able to earn a good chunk of money. $6,708 for a total of $128,974. That's the max we're going to earn off of all of our productions for our onions. Pretty good turnaround for the little bit of effort it took. Now, of course, you're going to have access to oil, and in order to do that, you might have additional expenses. But there's a lot of money in fried onions. Now, what about onion salt? Onion salt's got even worse yield rates. We're going to have just 25% of what we put in is what we're going to get out. So we're only going to get out 17,167 liters worth of salt versus our 68,671 units of onions that we put in. Are we going to make it up for it in price? Well, onion salt is going to sell for $6,264. If we take that and multiply it out by our yield, divided by 1,000, then we're going to get $107,534. A bit easier to make than fried onions, but a little less profitable. And then onion soup. We've got a max price of $3,612 in December. We come back here and look at our production. 100 onions go in, 50 units of onion soup come out, so we lose 50%. We take our 34,335 liters worth of onion soup and we divide by 1,000 and multiply by 3,612. Well, we're looking at $124,018. Kind of a nice medium ground, I think, between selling just regular onions and the fried onions, which is only going to get us almost $5,000 more off of a 1 hectare field. So a bit more investment in time in trying to get the oil. Onion soup may be the route to take. Let's go ahead and put a load in our cleaner. I just want to see this thing in operation. Hopefully we can unload without needing a belt. Activate our product. It's going to hold 50,000 liters worth of onions. Let's speed up time a wee little bit. And there we go. We get a pallet of bagged onions, 2,000 liters per pallet. Let's do the same with respect to our production. So I've activated our fried onions with canola oil, as well as our onion soup and salt. Let's hope I've got enough onions in there to make all three. Here we have our pack of onion rings, crisp onions, 1,000 liters. We have our pallet of onion salt, 1,000 liters. And we have our pack of onion soup, 2,000 liters. So guys, there you have it. That is onions in a nutshell. Hope this helps you figure out if you want to do onions either on Kinleg or over on other mats. And also, hope you can figure out then, is buying the vegetable processor worth it or not to you? Until next time, happy farming.